I might be wrong about this, but if Donald Trump goes to China right now, he's fucked. With the way that the situation has unfolded, especially when he did this hasty military operation again, where he's escalating against Iran, and Iran is escalating, following America up the escalation ladder.
So Hasan Piker just dropped a bombshell analysis about how Trump's Iran strikes completely sabotaged his China strategy. This connects directly to Trump's February attacks that escalated into the current crisis. We're seeing real-time geopolitical chess where military failure becomes diplomatic catastrophe. Let's break this down.
This is an unbelievably bad scenario for the United States of America in the Beijing summit.
The timing couldn't be worse for Trump. China scheduled this summit specifically to test American resolve after the Iran escalation. Beijing is essentially forcing Trump to negotiate from a position of demonstrated weakness, exactly the opposite of what he intended when he launched those strikes.
Trump has 10 more days until his scheduled visit to Beijing. It's supposed to happen in 10 days on May 14th. He could either cancel the visit for a second time, which would make it seem like he's completely lost control over the situation.
A second cancellation would be diplomatically catastrophic. Remember, Trump already postponed once in March, citing security concerns. Another cancellation signals to Beijing that America can't manage multiple crises simultaneously. Exactly the weakness China wants to exploit in trade negotiations.
If he pisses off the Chinese one more time, I mean, they're always in favor of stability, but it's an admission that America has lost control over the Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz carries 20% of global oil shipments daily. China imports 65% of its energy through this choke point. Iranian control here gives Beijing leverage over Washington that Trump never anticipated when he greenlit those February strikes.
Trump now would want to turn the Iran page as quickly as possible, said Wu Xinbo, a foreign policy advisory committee member in the Chinese foreign ministry. If the U.S. had gained an upper hand, Trump would have much stronger leverage. This is what I said as well, if you recall, for the past month or so. But now it's clear the U.S. simply couldn't handle Iran. So in a sense, when it comes to negotiations with China, its relative bargaining position has been weakened.
Wu Xinbo rarely speaks this bluntly about American failures. For a Chinese foreign ministry advisor to publicly state America couldn't handle Iran represents a calculated humiliation. This validates exactly what was predicted. Military adventurism without strategy breeds diplomatic disasters.
Trump wanted to go into China with two cards in his hand, Venezuela and Iran. This would have given Donald Trump tremendous leverage over the negotiations with Beijing.
Trump's two-card strategy was brilliant in theory. Control Venezuela's oil, neutralize Iran's energy leverage, then squeeze China on trade knowing they'd lost their energy security alternatives. But when Iran fought back successfully, the entire framework collapsed spectacularly.
It happened in Venezuela with relative ease, but it didn't happen in Iran at all because Iran was like, "F off, we're fighting back."
The contrast is stark. Venezuela folded within weeks while Iran escalated through proxy networks across the region. Trump assumed Iranian resistance would mirror Venezuelan compliance. Instead, Iran's asymmetric response exposed fundamental gaps in American power projection capabilities.
Venezuela was China's entry point into Latin America. Venezuela is a huge deal. We're like, you mean nothing changed as in like Delcy Rodriguez is in charge? Who gives a f? It doesn't matter. Delcy Rodriguez is now a loyal and reliable asset to American interests.
China's Belt and Road Initiative used Venezuelan oil infrastructure as their Latin American anchor point. Losing Venezuela was painful for Beijing, but manageable. Iran represents 60% more energy security, a loss China absolutely cannot afford to repeat.
Venezuela is not only sending oil to Israel, but also all the oil revenues are going through the American treasury. You know that, right? Does that mean U.S. is cooking the books? U.S. is taking a percentage of all the oil revenues of Venezuela right now. Like they are currently doing that. That is what's going on. That's why Chris Wright was in Venezuela recently. So yes, Venezuela is now a total vassal to U.S. interests.
Chris Wright's Caracas visit in April sealed this arrangement. Energy Secretary personally overseeing Venezuelan oil revenue flows through treasury accounts means America is essentially running Venezuela's energy sector as a subsidiary. That's complete economic vassalization.
But if they had gone in with control over the strait, eliminating Iran or having a pliant puppet regime control Iran in a way that's not dissimilar to Venezuela, then that would be consequential for sure, because China's energy needs are met through the Strait of Hormuz.
The Venezuela model was Trump's template for Iran. Regime change leading to energy vassalization. Controlling both would have given America chokehold power over Chinese energy imports. Iran's successful resistance completely shattered this grand strategy.
10% of Chinese oil and gas is coming from Iran. Meanwhile, that's like upwards of 80% of all of the oil and gas that Iran sells. So Iran is in a position where they are greatly invested in not pissing off China.
This asymmetric dependency is crucial. Iran needs China for 80% of exports, while China gets just 10% of energy from Iran. But that 10% represents critical diversification away from American-controlled suppliers. Trump's aggression pushed them closer together.
Like, that's why I'm saying America would have leverage in this negotiations process against China, because China has export controls that they can deploy on the United States of America and render its entire national security and its entire industry ineffective.
China's export controls on rare earth minerals, semiconductors, and advanced manufacturing components could cripple American defense production within months. Think about how quickly chip shortages hit auto manufacturing. Now imagine that across military systems.
But given the Strait of Hormuz part of that bargain failed spectacularly, and it failed in a way where America basically showed its ass, I don't even think the summit will happen.
In diplomatic terms, showing your ass means revealing your limitations publicly and embarrassingly. China watched America struggle with Iranian asymmetric responses for months. Beijing now knows exactly where American power projection breaks down.
Something to always consider that I bring up all the time is the Palestinians, for example, can withstand a lot more pain and punishment as opposed to like regular Israeli society. And the same thing goes between the United States of America and Iran. The Iranian economy has already had to exist outside of the global marketplaces because of America's sanctions regime. So their regular day-to-day existence, even before this war, was much more resilient than the Americans are. Americans are used to never having any inflationary shocks. So for that reason, the Iranian runway is a lot longer than the American one.
Iran's economy adapted to sanctions isolation over decades, while Americans panic over $4 gas prices. Iranian society expects economic hardship. American voters punish politicians for inflation. This resilience gap gives Iran enormous strategic patience in any prolonged conflict.
Donald Trump is an Israeli cum rag at this point. I don't know if there's any dignified exit for Trump, no matter what happens. What dignity remains for Donald Trump? I don't even think he can maintain dignity at this point, ever again.
Trump's unwavering Israeli commitment creates an escalation trap. Every Iranian response demands American counter-escalation to maintain credibility with Netanyahu. This cycle eliminates diplomatic off-ramps and forces Trump into progressively worse positions internationally.
That would mean having a Trump Tower in Tehran. And I'm not joking when I say this, okay? Please understand, I'm not joking when I say this. That is a huge sweetener for this deal. That literally is not a joke. That is a literal reason as to why Donald Trump would actually think about releasing the American sanctions on Iran. Iran knows this, just as everybody else in the region knows this reality, and that is precisely the reason why, regardless of how aggressively Trump is behaving like a servile little piggy for Israel, that is the only option that the Iranians have.
This isn't satire. Trump's business-first mentality could succeed where military pressure failed. Iran represents an 80 million person consumer market currently locked out of global commerce. Personal financial incentives might accomplish what bombs couldn't achieve.